Brothers and sisters, I'm absolutely appalled and disgusted at what I've just seen today. I want to show you a post that's a few weeks old, but I've just come across it today. It's from Lew White, and he's sharing a video from Ben Shapiro. And I'm going to let you see the video. It's only a very short video from Ben Shapiro, who says right here, "I'm done hiding this." Ben Shapiro says he's going to take us through a bit of a history of Israel and the promised land, Holy Land. He says, "I'm done hiding this." Lew White's taken this and posted it and said, "Truth shatters mythology. I'm an author that deals in shattering myths. This video has to be one of the best I've seen that shatters the foundation of hatred against the Yahudim, against the Jews. All the rest, not only that, but all the rest of the scattered tribes and the homeland given to those inhabitants of this earth who enjoin to the fig tree through the eternal covenant, who enjoin to the fig tree through the eternal covenant. Well done, shared." Well, before I unpack this menagerie of chaos, let's just watch Ben's video so we get the history and the foundation of why this has been posted in the first place.
There are four myths generally propagated by the left around the history of Israel and the Palestinians. These myths matter because they lead people into a peculiar moral relativism whereby attempted murder or successful murder of Jews is excused, and meanwhile, the evil human rights violations of the Palestinians are minimized. Myth number 1. Israel is historically Muslim territory. This is a pure and absolute lie. Israel is historically Jewish territory. According to the Bible and certain interpretations of contemporaneous archaeology, Joshua entered the land of Israel in 1400 BC. The Kingdom of David was founded around 1000 BC. The first Temple of Solomon was built in approximately 957 BC. The second temple was built in approximately 515 BC. The Hasmonean dynasty was founded in 166 BC. Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 BC, and the Jews exiled from Israel in 136 CE after the defeat of the Bar Kokhba revolt. The Romans, in an attempt to shame the Jews, renamed the area Palestine as an insult after the Jews' historic enemy, the Philistines. Even during the exile, there was continuous Jewish presence in the land. Islam, which is the religion of the Palestinian Arabs, was not even founded until the 7th century CE or AD. No independent Arab state has ever existed in the area known as Palestine. Myth number 2. Israel is the cause of the failure of land partition in the Middle East. This is, again, a pure lie. In 1917, the British promised the Jews the entire area of Palestine. At the time, Israel and Transjordan, which is today's Jordan. In 1920, the Arabs began pogroms, a mass murder of Jews, in Jerusalem as a sign of anger at the British mandate in Palestine. In 1922, the British government, in response, announced in a white paper that the Transjordan area, 70% of Palestine, would be sliced off and made an Arab state. That would become Jordan. In 1937, the Peel Commission recommended a rump state for the Jews, in which the British would retain control over Jaffa and Jerusalem, the Arabs would get the entire Negev and nearly the entirety of Judea and Samaria, and the Jews would get a tiny swath of territory along the coast, including Tel Aviv and Haifa. In 1939, the British, in response again to Arab pressure, restricted Jewish immigration to Palestine just as the Nazis began World War II and just before the Holocaust. Nonetheless, the Jews sided with the Brits, the Arabs sided with Hitler. In 1948, the British mandate ended and Israel declared its independence.
David Ben-Gurion read the Proclamation of Independence to 13 other members of the Israel Provisional National Council. Israel had taken its place among the nations of the world.
In 1964, with the Arabs still in full control of the Gaza Strip and West Bank, the Palestine Liberation Organization was founded, calling for the destruction of Israel. Here is a contemporaneous British report on the first chairman of the Palestine Liberation Organization.
One of the most extreme anti-Israeli politicians in the Arab world, Ahmed el-Shukeri, the leader of the Palestine Liberation Organization. As the spokesman for 1 million Palestine refugees, he's fanned the flames of hatred for Israel with unflagging energy.
In 1967, the Arab League announced the 3 no's: no peace, no recognition, no negotiations. With all of Israel's enemies mobilizing against it, Israel launched a preemptive strike on the Egyptian Air Force, inaugurating the 1967 Six-Day War. This ended with Israel gaining miraculously the Sinai Desert, the Golan Heights, the Gaza Strip, Judea and Samaria, now known as the West Bank, as well as the entirety of Jerusalem. In 1973, the Arabs launched all-out war again, this time on Yom Kippur. Israel survived and gained territory. In 1979, Israel gave the Sinai back to Egypt in return for peace. In 1993, Israel agreed to the Oslo Accords, which promised a step-by-step process to establish a Palestinian state. In 1998, Israel conceded yet more territory to the Palestinian Authority under the prime ministership of Benjamin Netanyahu. In 2000, Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak offered Yasser Arafat, the terrorist leader of the Palestinian Authority, 91% control over the West Bank in contiguous territory and an Israeli security presence along 15% of the border with Jordan. Arafat walked away from the table and began the Second Intifada, a massive terror wave that ended with the death of thousands of Jews. In 2005, Israel unilaterally withdrew from the Gaza Strip. Hamas immediately took it over and began using it as a base for terrorist activity. That continues until this day. In 2008, Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert offered even more than Barak in terms of territory, with some land swaps to maintain Jewish-populated areas in exchange for some Israeli territory. Olmert even offered to relinquish Israeli sovereignty at the Temple Mount, the holiest site in Judaism, as well as the entire Old City of Jerusalem to a 5-member, non-sovereign international trusteeship comprising Israel, the PA, Jordan, the US, and Saudi Arabia. PA head Mahmoud Abbas walked away without a counteroffer. Myth number 3. Israel expelled all Palestinian Arabs from British Mandate Palestine. This is, again, a lie. Israel's founding documents asked Arabs to stay. Israel's Declaration of Independence, in the middle of an ongoing war with Arab nations, reads, quote, "We appeal, in the very midst of the onslaught launched against us now for months, to the Arab inhabitants of the State of Israel to preserve peace and participate in the upbuilding of the state on the basis of full and equal citizenship and due representation in all its provisional and permanent institutions." Debate has raged for decades over how many Arabs left the nascent state of Israel thanks to expulsion, and how many left because they were told to leave by their own leaders. An estimated 250,000 to 300,000 refugees left before their homes were even in a war zone.
We didn't compel them to leave. They left on their own will, or rather on the will of the Arab leaders, who advised them, even before trouble started.
The collapse of Arab society during the 1947-48 war, leaving many Arabs without a means of support, has been well documented.
Israel will do everything in its power to help the resettlement of these refugees by paying compensation and by other means.
Hundreds of thousands of these refugees ended up in the West Bank and Gaza, which remained Arab territory until 1967. Furthermore, Arab nations refused to take in hundreds of thousands of Arabs, turning their co-religionists into refugees who have maintained that status for literally decades, a situation unparalleled in human history. Fully 62% of such refugees live outside the West Bank and Gaza Strip, according to the UNRWA. Meanwhile, Israel, tiny Israel, took in over 800,000 Jews expelled from Arab lands between 1948 and 1951 and never asked for land to be returned to those Jews. Myth number 4. Israel is an apartheid state. Israel is most certainly not an apartheid state. Arab citizens of Israel have the same rights as Jewish citizens. 20% of all citizens of Israel are Arab. The vast majority of Palestinians live under Palestinian rule in the West Bank. All Arabs in the Gaza Strip lived under Hamas rule. Israel's population, again, is 20% Arab. Arab parties have sat in the Israeli government, and Arab sits on Israel's Supreme Court. There are 0 Jews living under Palestinian rule. The only apartheid state is any state of Palestine. All of these myths have consequences. All of these lies have consequences. They lead to a pseudo-sophisticated context that allows for the murder of Jews. It allows people in the West to believe that the grievances that are openly articulated by the Palestinian Authority, Islamic Jihad, and Hamas are actually about territory. Hamas openly calls for the murder of every Jew in the region. The Palestinian Authority gives actual bounties to the families of terrorists. Islamic Jihad has the same exact goals as Hamas. When evil people say they want to wipe Jews off the face of the earth, we ought to listen, not make up silly excuses as to why they don't actually mean what they say. The consequences of buying your own lies, not even their lies, your own lies, is dead Jews.
All right, so keep in mind what Ben said. He's just a Jew, a political Jew. He hasn't got Yahusha's spirit in him, doesn't even know the name Yahusha or promote it, and yet he's just giving us the history, as well as his own political slant, and religious slant, giving us the history of Israel and the land, right back to Old Testament times. Lou's jumped on this and said, truth shatters mythology. You've got to think, why is Lou doing this? Truth shatters mythology. I'm an author that deals in shattering myths. Reckon? This video has to be one of the best I've seen that shatters the foundation of hatred against the Jews, all the rest of the scattered tribes, and the homeland given to those inhabitants of this earth who enjoin to the fig tree through the eternal covenant. The homeland. This whole video was about the promised land, Israel, Jerusalem, all that. And he's saying, given to the inhabitants of this earth, their homeland. Who's he saying that he is? Who's he saying that the chosen people are and where they're supposed to be residing? All enjoined through the fig tree, through the eternal covenant. He's got no idea who the fig tree is or how to enjoin to Yahusha, does he? Somebody's picked him up on this. He's had a comment under it, which is interesting. Mark says, well, Lou, first, Ben is a self-proclaimed Zionist, State of Israel versus the House of Israel. His point number 2 is partially true and partially false. Lord Rothschild bequeathed the land so England could grant it. Balfour Declaration, Ben failed to mention this. Ben blames the Arabs and Hamas, but many Palestinians, especially of the way, are not Hamas supporters. The State of Israel doesn't defend them. And Ben does not mention the men in black suits and hats with false locks are not true Yahudim, not true Jews, but Ashkenazi. I don't see the hatred towards the scattered tribe unless they are followers of Mashiach. And Ben does not say this because Ben is just a Jew. He does not know this. Yes, Ben speaks eloquently some truths and is smart, but as you know, he has a bias and is not Yahusha HaMashiach. Shalom. Well, a lot of that is obvious, but still, Lou has responded to him saying, Mark, Ben Shapiro's video exposes the myths the media propaganda machine have been promoting, and that's why his presentation has value. What is that myth? That the Jews are behind everything. The Jews' fault. It's the Jews' fault. Putting the magnifying glass on what the Jews are actually doing. The media's doing a lot of that lately. Lou doesn't like that. The people who guard and teach the commands of Yahuah, even if who's Yahuah? Yahuah's gone. The people who guard and teach the commands of Yahuah, even if absorbed in some form of teaching authority created by man, will be judged by Yahusha and suffer loss for the dross they've promoted. I have the hope, this is very interesting, I have the hope that Yahusha has a plan to give everyone a second chance. And that's why he inspired Zechariah 12 verse 10. Zechariah 12, and it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of favour and of supplications. And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one who mourns for his only son, and will be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. In that day there shall be great mourning in Jerusalem as the mourning of Hadadrimon in the valley of Megiddon. And the land shall mourn every family apart, the family of the house of David apart, and their wives apart. Looking at this very fleshly, all this history of Israel, Jerusalem, what's going on? Lou's jumped on the bandwagon and he's promoting his Israel, going against the false propaganda. All this is mentioning Zechariah. Zechariah is talking about everybody that goes against Jerusalem will be wiped out. All this. Looking at everything, ink on the page, very naturally, very carnally. We all know that when you see Jerusalem, it's a shadow. It's a code word, Jerusalem. It's not to be looked at naturally, geographically. Israel is not to be looked at geographically, nationally. It's all a shadow. Israel was the first wife. And where did they reside? In Israel and in Jerusalem. Where was the temple residing? The temple, of course, being the presence, the Shekinah, the home of the house of, Elohim. Where was that? In Israel, in Jerusalem. It's an old shadow. Where is it living today, though? Israel? Jerusalem? No. It's living in Yahusha's bride. which is the fulfillment of everything Israel, Jerusalem, promised land was set up to point to. The new bride. Even Yahusha says, come and I will show you. Come, I'll show you the bride. And what does he show John? He shows him a new city coming from the clouds, the cube, the new Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the new wife, the new bride. So it's all, you've got to look at this abstractly. You've got to enter the Spirit. But none of these crones have Yahusha's Spirit. Ben doesn't. Lou doesn't. None of these people have Yahusha's Spirit to open up the abstract truths of the text. So all they have to deal with is the ink on the page, which is all political. It's all geographical. So can you see, even by looking at this scripture here, it's not talking about a second chance for planet Earth. It's not talking about a second chance for anybody. It's talking about what's going to happen when Yahusha arrives. Everybody's going to see him. Just like we talked about last week when we dealt with the Battle of Armageddon. Everybody's going to see him, and many are going to hate it. Many are going to mourn, like those mourning for their firstborn son. Many are going to be seething with hatred and fire missiles into the sky, as we discussed. But it's all talking about something that's going to happen when Yahusha returns. And it's got nothing to do with where you live. It's got nothing to do with some eternal covenant, which Israel broke time and time and time and time and time and time and time again. So therefore, is it everlasting? Is it eternal if it's been broken over and over again? It's only as effective as the joint union of its parts, isn't it? And it's got broken time and time and time and time again until Yahuah actually said, I'm done with you. And yeah, they've tried to make all the things that Yahuah did, leaving the temple and cutting off his first wife, divorcing her, giving a certificate of divorce, kicking her out of the land, dispersing her into the nations. They're trying to take all these prophecies and say that he's going to bring them all back. You know what? That's all shadow talk. All those prophecies are all shadow talk. He's already chosen his bride. He's already brought those he wants back into Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is the bridal assembly, the bridal gathering of his chosen people. That is the bride. He's chosen them. They're all still scattered in the world, but he's working with them. He's maturing them. How's he doing that? Because this would have been a perfect situation to shine some light on the truth of what deliverance is. From Lou, from Mark, from Ben, all these people, but they can't, can they? You can't promote something you don't know. Let me finish this last comment before I go on, though. Mark says to Lou, I don't understand your view on the myth, the media propaganda been exposed. What's the propaganda? What's the myth that the media propaganda that's been exposed? The media shills for Israel, and most are called anti-Semitic if they criticise or oppose them, even on policy. Ben spoke half-truths and supports the victim role Israel seems to play often. Absolutely. She's always playing the victim. Oh, but no other nation's undergone what she's undergone. No other nation should have, because no other nation has been promised all the things she was given and failed and threw back in Yahuwah's face. Of course they've gone through it all. They were divorced and actually cursed by the Creator because of all the opportunities that he gave them and everything they spat in his face about. But I do agree, everyone deserves a second chance. I don't. Even Ben and I agree Yahusha will judge. Shalom. What a missed opportunity to draw people into how to be delivered, how to be set free from what's inside them. But these idiots don't have anything to talk about except a literal abomination of desolation, literal temples, literal Israel. You know, everything's literal. Everything's earthbound. Where's the spiritual kingdom? Where's the kingdom of Elohim that's supposed to be coming, living inside us? Where is it? They don't talk about that. They're keeping people in bondage. It's absolutely disgusting how they're peddling the word. Lou and his crones do not have the truth. He's got the name of Yahuah and the name of Yahusha. And through those two names, understanding who Yahusha is, his deliverance, through that, there is such opportunity. Lou has such a wide following of people who he could actually tell, this is how you get delivered. But what does he do? Takes them all back to some pseudo-eternal covenant, which has been broken time and time again until Yahusha came along and said, a new command I give you, love. Does he tell people that? Does he tell them there's a spirit living in their flesh? Does he tell them that they can be delivered by going through a spirit and fire baptism, by receiving his spirit, the eternal, incorruptible seed within them, and then going through the fire of torment, getting all that? You've got to go through the fiery trials. You've got to get that spirit out of you. You've got to become spiritual. You've got to become mature. You've got to be behaving the royal laws of love. Does he tell people any of this? Or is he in there trying to be political? In there trying to be geographical, religious and knowledgeable, and a Torah teacher of the many? Can you see how wicked and disgusting this is? The way Yahusha's beautiful word is being peddled. I expect it from someone like Ben Shapiro because he's just a Jew who's got a political following. And he does all that. It's interesting to watch his stuff. I don't expect it from somebody who knows the name of Yahusha and who preaches the name of Yahusha, but I'm coming to expect it these days because people are going to follow their agendas through to their conclusion. And we can all see Lou's agenda here. It is not to set people free. It is to lift himself up on the name of Yahuah, taking people back to an everlasting covenant. When Yahusha came and brought a new covenant in his new powerful blood, it's all about his blood. They deny what he did. They deny his blood. If you're going to go back to all that old stuff, you might as well just go back to circumcision, which they do too, and go back to animal sacrifices, which they're trying to do now too. Make up your mind. Don't stand on the fence. If you're going to take on the old covenant, then do it all properly. Don't be half-assed at it. But those who want the new covenant of Yahusha cry out and claim his blood. They're washed clean in his blood. His seed goes in them. They're baptized in spirit, and he puts them on a path. Hebrews 12, I flog, rebuke, chastise, discipline, rebuke those whom I love, so that they'll bring forth the peaceable fruits of righteousness, of which there is no law against. Nothing can come against you. Oh, they can lie. I mean, look at all this. Look at all these lies in this post here. Nothing can come against you if you're doing Yahusha's two royal laws, loving him with all your heart, mind, body, strength, worshipping him, which is your behavior in every single thought. I've never heard Lou ever mention thoughts. I've never heard him ever talk about this truth. Never, ever. Never talk about the vein of deliverance. No, what you've got to go through to be delivered. No, we'll just teach you about the name Yahuah and Yahusha, and you work it out for yourself. Well, time is short. There's only 2 years left. And people need deliverance. And Yahusha knows who is chosen. So if you feel drawn to Yahusha, if you feel drawn to being delivered, if you face that everything in your life is filth and rotten and you're just mad and sick and diseased, needing the healer, needing the deliverer, he will come into you and he will take out the spirit in your flesh. He will make you a nice, good, righteous, sweet, loving person again. That's what we're all wanting, isn't it? To be matured, to be delivered, to be in this loving, intoxicating, joyous rivers of living water gushing from your innermost being. That's what we want. Where's all that in this stupid political jargon that's going on here? Talking about who Israel, Palestine, the Jews, hating the Jews, loving the Jews. Why do you think everybody hates the Jews? Did it ever occur to you to look at their behaviour? I don't promote hating anybody, but look at the Jews' behaviour and who they say they are. Look at who they say they are. And look at Lou sucking up to them, sucking up the arse of all these Jewish mindsets. Got to respect the older brother. No, we don't have to respect them because they blew it. They're divorced. They're kicked out of the land. They have no more superiority. They have no rank or status any better than anyone else in the world. They have the same corrupt spirit. You've got to look at this spiritually. If you have not entered the vein, if you have not entered into the narrow gate of Yahusha Elohim, It doesn't matter what your bloodline. It doesn't matter whether you are Messianic, Nazarene, Jew, Christian, Muslim. It doesn't matter what you are if you have not entered the narrow gate. Because that is the only way you become spiritual. It is the only way to be matured and to be delivered. There is only one way. There's only one narrow gate, and very few will find it. So I reject all of this, all of it. And I hope you do too, because this is peddling the word, associating with people more popular and with bigger followings than him, to try and build up his following even more and more and more. And what is his following? What is he doing? Apart from pumping the true name of Yahusha, which was the last real thing that Yahusha ever gave him, and he's done so much damage with it, that why would Yahusha give him anything else new? He won't come through with the goodies. You know, somebody coming out of the world and facing that Yahusha is Elohim could be told the truth, told the way. Does he tell anybody the way? No, he just tells them the name. Well, you need to know who Yahuah is, what Yahuah did. He was so disgusted with the Jews, so disgusted with this promised land that he'd given them, with Israel, Jerusalem, the temple, everything. It was destroyed. He left it. He divorced them. 500 years of dark years where no one even heard from him. They were taken over by Romans until he came in the flesh. He left his throne. He emptied himself of all cosmic, eternal, universal power, and he became a man, a humble man, called Yahusha, meaning I'm your deliverance. I'm your only deliverance. He came, he died. He took back his bride, the legal rights to his bride. She's no longer owned by sin and death, which Satan sowed in the garden. There is a way to have that corrupt seed, nature, spirit, behavior, inclination, all of it taken out of you, to have a new heart, a new spirit put within you. Yahusha promises that. This is the real truth. I don't care how long you've known about the name Yahuah or Yahusha. You know something's wrong. You know you don't feel the peace. You know you don't feel delivered. Even though these idiots have told you to go into water and be baptized, you go down dry, you come up wet, there is no change. You do not need to be physically baptized in water. H2O is irrelevant. Yahusha fulfilled that old shadow as well. You need to be baptized in the Spirit and the fire. John the Baptist said that. The one coming after me will baptize you in spirit and fire, in absolute power. You want that power? You want to know that you're through, know that you're righteous, then this is the path you've got to go on. We call it a vein because it's like following the vein of gold through the rock. It's a narrow gate. Find it. I pray you find it. These crones haven't found it. They're pumping all sorts of filth. They have not found it. Come out from among her so that you do not share in her plagues. All these people are sharing in the plagues that are coming on. Run for your life, brothers and sisters. Run your race and get Yahusha, Elohim, in you. Follow him through the vein. Love you very much. Bye-bye.